I adopted my dog Tank when I was 20. He had minor issues like leash walking and prey drive. Issues that I fixed. This dog is a saint, never bit anyone or shown any aggression. He's very well trained and now he's 5 years old and 60 pounds. My boyfriend and I live in an apartment with my dog. We moved in together last year, but we've been dating for 4 years. In December, my boyfriend's mom invited herself to come visit us in the summer. Now when she decided this, we were under the impression that she would stay at a hotel or something. We live in a small, really small 2-bedroom apartment, but we use the second room as a shared office space. But whatever, we'll deal. We can throw in a bed and move the room around. However, 3 weeks ago, she was talking to my boyfriend saying she would be staying for 2 weeks because she wanted to sightsee and because she really wanted to be with us. I could tell he was happy about this because he misses her and doesn't get to see her a lot because we live so far away from her. I wasn't going to argue with it because I know it makes him happy. However, then she called again last week. She told my boyfriend that she wouldn't feel comfortable if Tank was in the apartment with her because he's big and you can't trust dogs like that. She said she didn't feel comfortable with his size or breed. Also that he could be unpredictable because I got him a yearish old and don't know about his past. She asked my boyfriend if he would have my dog boarded the whole time while she was there. He brought it up 3 days ago and I immediately said no. He asked me if I would think about it and I said no again. Now he's angry with me. I'm fine with everything else, but I draw the line at leaving Tank in a boarding facility for 2 weeks straight. I've never done something like that with him. I don't want to risk anything. I even looked into it just at the pricing and it's too expensive. This is his home and he deserves to stay here. I've never had a problem with her before, but this is ridiculous. She's never met Tank in person before and she gets a lot of pictures and videos of him. When we video chat her, sometimes he joins in. She's never said anything about her concerns before. He isn't a bad dog, but she doesn't want him at the apartment at all while she's there. After about a week of silence, waiting for each other to bring this up, I bypassed my boyfriend and went to his mom. I reached out and talked about her feelings for Tank. It started out pleasant. Then I told her BF said that she wanted my dog boarded. I asked why she didn't feel comfortable with Tank. Her direct quote was, "You don't know what his past is. He's big and unpredictable and I don't want to be staying with that. It would be different if you knew, but you don't. I just don't feel comfortable sharing a space with a dog that may attack me for going to pee in the middle of the night or grabbing a cup of water." I was angry and didn't want to scream to make her upset, so I said very politely, "If you don't feel comfortable living with Tank for 2 weeks, even though your own son has been since August, you can stay in a hotel while you visit." And I hung up on her. My boyfriend got home a few hours later and was angry because I talked to her, made her upset, and then hung up on her. Now she thinks I hate her. He said I wasn't being fair to her. I asked why he wanted me to board Tank so badly. He knows he wouldn't attack her or do anything aggressive towards her. All he had to say was boil down to, "Can't you just do it to make this whole thing easier? He's a dog." We argued at some point in circles. How Tank is a dog, he doesn't get rights in the apartment, and things got worse when I asked what would happen in the future if we were still together and she decided to visit when we were living in a house. He said that it would be different because we could put him in a room or something. So my dog has to be penalized for living in our home with us when your mom visits? When I adopted Tank, I took responsibility of taking care of him, making him my first priority, and treating him with respect as he is a living creature. I see him as I would a child. I do the same things for him as someone does for a child. He is family, 4 paws or not. I made a clear choice that night. While his mother may still be visiting whenever it is safe to do so, it won't be in this apartment. We came to a truth. This and other things we talked about are big and can't be ignored. We realized we don't want the same things and it's not something you can compromise on. So, this all started with what I thought would eventually be my future mother-in-law wanting me to board my dog and ended up with me and my boyfriend mutually breaking up after 4 years of dating.
So this story time takes place back in 2018, and I had been out of high school for a while at this point. So every year, my city in the summertime does this thing. It's like a giant music festival. It's like the entire city. They shut down tons of streets, and they have a whole like 5-day music festival thing. And it's not like current music. It's more, like swing and like jazz and stuff like that. Like the slower music kind of appeals to the older crowd. And, I guess one of my teachers really liked jazz and swing music and wanted to go to this festival. I know this because on the first day of the festival, I left my apartment to get food, and I had to walk through a bunch of the streets that the festival was on to get to the restaurant I was going to, and I walked by my teacher in a crowd, like waving his hand back and forth to one of the songs, and he had like a giant cup of beer, and so did his wife or girlfriend or whatever, and yeah, they were just enjoying the smooth jazz music and just having a good time. Now, I wasn't close with this teacher in high school, so my first instinct when I saw him was not to run up to him and say hello, because I was like, alright, first of all, he probably won't even recognize me, and so I don't feel like talking to a teacher if he does recognize me. I'm just gonna go get my food and go home, like I'm trying to watch some Netflix. So that's what I did. Now, day 3 comes along in the festival, and I'm in my apartment with like 3 of my friends, just watching something on YouTube, and it was getting pretty late. It was like 1 or 1:30 in the morning, somewhere around there, and even though the music stops at this festival, the bars and shit are still open, so pretty much everybody stays out in the streets and kind of just party and stuff until the bars close. So me and my friends decided it's a good idea to venture out into the streets and just see what's going on. Like, we were basically just on the hunt to see if there was anything interesting going on outside at this festival. So we're walking around, and from a distance, I see that same teacher outside a bar, like with a Hawaiian shirt on, super short shorts. He was wearing sandals with no socks on, like he was living his best life. And he looked very, very, very fucked up. Like, he was doing this little dance in front of his friends, and his girlfriend was with him, and they were dancing. And he had a giant, like, super tall glass of probably some alcohol or something. And as who was also in the same class as me with this teacher, and I was like, look, that's our teacher from school. And my friend was like, yo, I remember him, like he was so dope. And my other friends had no idea who he was because they did not go to the same school as us. But yeah, my friend was super hyped to see this teacher out in public. Now, even though my friend really liked this teacher and was like hyped about seeing him, he didn't want to say hi to him because honestly, he looked like he was having such a fun time with his friends. Like, we just didn't want to interrupt him. So we're walking by, and at this point, we're like right next to him, right? And he sees us, and he goes, "Hey, like, how are you guys?" And we turn and we look at him. We're like, "Hey, like, how you doing? How have you been?" He's like, "It's so good to see you. How have you been? Like, what have you been up to?" And my friend's like, "Oh, not much. Like, I'm working over at this place." And I'm like, "Yeah, not much. I'm like self-employed doing this like whole YouTube thing." He's like, "I've heard about it. That's awesome." And like, he's really fucked up. Like, we could tell by the way he was talking and like the way his face looked, like he was super messed up. Now, like I said earlier, me and this teacher were not very close. Also, I did not do very good in his class, so I didn't even think he knew who I was. Like, I was surprised. But yeah, after he said hello to us, he looks at me for a second and he goes, "Austin." I'm like, "Yeah, what's up?" He goes, "Come here for a sec." And he grabs my arm and he walks me over to the other sidewalk, like across the street, far away from everyone. And he looks me in the eyes and he goes, "I thought you would appreciate this. I'm on 1.5 tabs of acid right now." And I'm like, "Wait, what?" He's like, "Yeah, it's awesome." I'm like, "Are you serious?" He's like, "Yeah, man." I'm like, why are you on acid?" He's like, "I don't know, man, just the music and everything, like, just felt right." I'm like, "Okay, well, cool, man, just be safe." And he's like, "Oh, no, I am. Don't worry. This isn't my first rodeo." And I'm like, "All right, dude." And at this point, I'm just confused. I'm like, why is he telling me this? Why did he, like, think that I was the appropriate person to tell? Like, it was so funny and confusing. Like, this dude that once used to teach me in school is now telling me about his acid trip. So anyway, I was like, "All right, man, well, like, have fun, be safe." He's like, "Don't you worry, I will be. Have a great night, Austin. I hope everything's going well in your life." And I was like, "Thank you, man. Like, you too." He's like, "Anytime. Have a good one." So I turn around, I start walking away. I go back to my friend group. I grab them. We wave goodbye to everyone, my teacher and his group of friends and his girlfriend, and we start walking away. And my friend's like, "Yo, pull you away like that? Like, what did he tell you?" I'm like, "Yo, our teacher is on 1.5 tabs of acid right now." He's like, "No fucking way." I was like, "Yup." He randomly decided to pull me aside and just tell me about that. And my friend's like, "Yo, that is insane." I'm like, "Yup." And as we were walking away, I heard him yell, the teacher. He's like, "Guys, wait." And we turn around, and he just goes, "Come back tomorrow, we'll party." And I was like, "Okay." And we turn around and we keep walking. At this point, I feel like I'm living in a simulation. Like, what is going on? And this isn't like some student teacher either. Like, this isn't some dude in his 20s or even his 30s. This was a dude like in his mid-40s who was super serious in high school. Like, you would have never expected to see him at a festival on acid. So you're probably wondering, all right, well, what happens next, man? Did you go back the next day? You party with him? Yeah, we did. We went back the next day. But we didn't really party with him. It was just him and his friend group again. And we talked to him for like 30 minutes. And then we ended up leaving and doing something else.
My girlfriend, 25 female, repeatedly insists that I redo my proposal over and over. I'm running out of patience.
I'm with it.
I, 24 male, proposed to my girlfriend, 25 female, in late 2019 after 2 years together. Admittedly, now that I think back on it, it wasn't the most well thought out or planned proposal. It was mostly spontaneous and came as we were lying in bed together, so I didn't even have a ring at the time. My girlfriend said that she would love to marry me, but she had been looking forward to a more elaborate proposal. I assured her that I'd sort something out. A month later, after shopping for the perfect ring, I set up some candles when she was coming home one day. Think the Chandler-Monica proposal in Friends. Well, my girlfriend loved the ring, thankfully, and teared up with happiness. She said that she really appreciated my effort, but what she meant by elaborate was something original that she could tell our kids about one day. She mentioned the name of one of her friends whose boyfriend, we both know, proposed by making a huge video montage and putting it on a projector. I decided to start over, and in February I planned a 3-night trip away in our favorite city. This time I spared no expense and ordered all the extras: a 5-star hotel, a photographer, an opera quartet. When I asked her to marry me, my girlfriend said yes, except when we were alone again, she gently told me that she didn't think now was the right time.
Of course.
And she was so worried about her future. When I asked her to marry me, my girlfriend said yes, except when we were alone again, she gently told me that she didn't think now was the right time.
Of course.
And she was so worried about her future / COVID-19 and that a proposal now wouldn't be a good memory for her. Since then, I've carried the ring around with me almost everywhere. At this point, I've even tried to involve my girlfriend in some of the proposal planning, asking where, when, how she'd like us to get engaged, and what would make her happy. However, all she has told me is that she doesn't know exactly what she's looking for, and I'll know when the right proposal comes.
Okay.
From my perspective, this is hugely frustrating, since in all other respects, she's assured me she wants us to begin our lives together. Last week, I thought I'd bite the bullet again. And after cooking her a homemade meal, I asked her if she'd like to be my wife. She asked me if I was trying to propose, and I asked her what was wrong with that. Once more, she told me that she can't wait to marry me, but it still wasn't quite the proposal she needed. I realized that my girlfriend might come off as pushy or high maintenance in this post, but I love her very much, and in day-to-day life, she's honestly the most understanding, chill person to be around. However,
Oh, really?
Hey. However, I don't understand why she's acting this way and what I'm supposed to do to satisfy her with the perfect proposal at this point. I'm confused and running out of patience. How do I deal with this?
Okay, does she want to get married? Can she not wait?
So I have these new neighbours who just moved in a few days ago, and they are so strange. They're a guy and a girl, so I presume they're a couple, and when I saw them unpacking their boxes out of their car, I came down to say hi and introduce myself. He flashed me a smile and started walking towards me to say hello, and she runs up towards him and grabs him by the arm and says, "What's going on here? What seems to be the problem?" I was a bit taken aback and I was like, "No problem, I'm your neighbour, hey, I just wanted to say hi." She literally looked at me and rolled her eyes. She said, you can see we're kind of busy here, right?" I said, "Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry for interrupting you, just wanted to introduce myself," and I went back inside. Then a few minutes later, I looked out my window to see if they were still unpacking their car, and she was screaming at him in the street. So I went to bed that night, and 2 o'clock in the morning, I woke up to the sound of breaking glass. It's coming from my neighbour's house, and he's screaming at her, "Would you stop? You've just gone and broken all our plates." So I have the neighbours from hell, it seems. They just moved in the other day, and I heard them screaming at 2 o'clock in the morning, and glass is breaking. I was hoping it was just going to be a one-off, but then the following night and the following night, it was the same thing. Screaming, glasses breaking, loud noises. They're new, so I didn't want to be calling the police on them, and I definitely wasn't going to go next door and ask them to keep the noise down. I don't know what their deal is. They seem to be a couple, and she seems to have a real problem with me. Like, she was giving me such an attitude when I just went to say hello. So then today I was going out to my car to get something, and I saw her husband or boyfriend or whatever he is. He looks over and starts walking towards me, and I'm like, "Oh God, no, please don't leave there be another confrontation." So then he says, "Hey, I'm so sorry about the other day. We totally got off on the wrong foot. My girlfriend is a bit stressed sometimes. Don't mind her." Just as he said it, his girlfriend starts running out of the house and shouts, "What did you say about me? Oh, you fancy your neighbour, do you? You want to be with her?" And she tells him to get out.
So in the past 20 minutes, my whole life was just flipped upside down. So I'm out with my friends, and we're at Walmart, and all of a sudden my dad calls me. And he is screaming at the top of his lungs for me to get home, and then just hangs up. I couldn't even get a word in. I was so confused. So I call him back because I'm really confused. And all I hear is my dad and my sister screaming at each other, and then the phone hangs up again. So my friend drives me home really quick, and I walk in through the garage because my front door broke, and I'll explain why later. So I go in through the garage, and I'm going through the basement of the house, so I can hear everything that's going on upstairs. And my dad is screaming at the top of his lungs at my sister. Like, the screaming was like a married couple finding out that the other person cheated. It was insane. So I get to the top of the stairs, and I'm like, "What's going on?" And my dad's up in my sister's face just screaming at her. My sister's just crying, and I'm like, and my dad turns around and he looks at me, and he's like, "Kayla, don't act all innocent. You didn't do your laundry." And I'm like, "Yes, I did. The laundry basket is in my room." And then he just stops talking because he knew he had nothing to yell at me about, and he was just coming at me backwards for no reason. Then he goes back to screaming at my sister, and then he goes, "You're out of the house. Your mom's on her way to pick you up." And I was like, "Oh, my sister just got kicked out." So I go into my sister's room and I start talking to her, and she's like, "Yeah, I just got kicked out because I didn't do my laundry. And because she didn't clean her room and other stuff like that. Basically just because she didn't clean." So I'm like, "Boy, what the hell?" So like 10 minutes later, my sister's in my room and we're just talking about everything that happened. And my dad comes in and he's like, "Ashley, your phone's getting shut off." Ashley's my sister, by the way. So she just starts crying even more because now she won't have a phone. And then like 30 minutes later, my mom shows up to pick her up. So I go out into the garage, and my mom and my dad are just like going at it a little bit. My dad's like yelling and my mom's like, "Chill out." And it was just like crazy. So then my dad's like, "Why is the doorknob broke?" Because this morning I was leaving my house to get the mail and the doorknob literally just fell off in my hands. And I tell him how it just fell off in my hands, and he's like, "I don't believe you because the doorknob was all bent and stuff." And I'm like, "I don't know, like I literally was just opening the door." So then he goes quiet and he looks at me and he goes, "If you're not the one that bent it, then somebody else was." Meaning that somebody was trying to break in last night. And then all the puzzle pieces start going together. Because last night around midnight I was writing an essay and my dog's laying in my bed and he gets up and he runs downstairs and he just starts barking at the front door. I don't think anything of it because sometimes he barks at his reflection, but I hear like subtle knocks on the door. But I'm just assuming it's like my sister or the wind or something. And then this morning when I go to leave the house, the doorknob falls off. And I didn't even notice the doorknob was like bent and like the internals of the doorknob were like all mushed together. It looked like somebody took a hammer or a wrench and was trying to get the doorknob off. So now, even though I'm not kicked out, I have to go to my mom's tonight for my safety because now there's somebody trying to break into the house. And my dad's gonna get camera footage from the neighbors because they have a Ring camera. So yeah, that's like really good! So in the past 20 minutes, my sister got kicked out and I found out that somebody's trying to break into my house. How's your Monday going?
That time, I got locked in a room with an unsettling man. When I was 18, I worked at my college's residence building at the front desk, and I think I almost got assaulted or murdered. You be the judge. During the summer, the building operated as a hotel. So 2.5 floors were hotel rooms, and half of the 3rd floor were student rooms. The whole building operated with a hotel swipe key system that was pretty outdated, and all of the doors were powered by 4 AA batteries. If the batteries died, there was a decently lengthy process to replace them and reprogram the door. A dark-haired guy came to the front desk from inside the building while I was working an overnight shift at around 1 or 2 a.m. and said he left his keycard in his room. I made him a new one and made my first error of the night. Hotel guests could have as many keys remade as they wanted. Students, however, were supposed to be given a temporary keycard and charged $2. I gave him a new key for his room and asked if he was a student or hotel guest, and he replied, student. At this point, I should have checked our system to charge his account, but I was caught up doing administrative duties and forgot. Later on in the night, maybe around 3 or 4 a.m., he came to the desk again and said he couldn't get into his room. I asked if he just forgot his key again, and he said no, the door wasn't working. I asked if the light was coming on when he swiped his card, and he said no, so I figured the batteries were dead. I told him I'd have to change the batteries and went up to his room with him. He asked me for my name, and I told him. He didn't tell me his. I opened the door manually with a master key and told him I'd have to prop it open while I worked on the back panel to replace the batteries. He said, quote, no, it's okay, I'll close it. And closed and deadbolted the door locked. Really fucking weird, but I tried not to think about it. I had changed the batteries on plenty of other doors by this point, and some students were iffy about having their doors propped open for their room to be on display for anyone walking by. He also had a really thick accent. I gave him the benefit of the doubt and thought maybe it was also just a language barrier issue. At this point, though, I really felt like something was wrong, but I tried to ignore it so I didn't freak him out. While I was trying to focus on fixing the door as quickly as possible, he kept trying to entice me to go further into the room. He held out a little gold house key and said, I have a key, go get it, and threw it under the bed. He said there was a leak under the fridge. He just kept trying to get me down on the ground, throwing random problems at me. Obviously, I told him no. I'd send maintenance up in the morning to take a look at anything that was broken. I had my back to him, and he asked me if I would take off my glasses. I said, no, I need them to see. His tone of voice changed, and in the most steady, chilling manner, he said, Ella, it's okay. You can take them off. And from behind me, he reached around and tried to take off my glasses. I swatted his hand away and, trying to remain composed, said, no thanks, I need to keep them on. Even though he was creeping me the fuck out, I didn't want to be rude. I didn't want to get in trouble if he complained about me or risk upsetting him and having him yell at me. I got up to grab something from the door repair kit and undid the door deadbolt and opened it up in the process. He jumped towards the door to close it again and told me to keep it closed. I told him no, I had to open it to start reprogramming it from the front. While I held the door open with my foot and grabbed something from the door repair kit, he started playing with the little wispy hairs at the top of my forehead and trying to touch my shoulder. I swatted him away again and asked him not to touch me and focused on getting the fuck out of there. He once again tried getting me to follow him into the bedroom, saying the bed was broken. This is when I realized that he had nothing in his room. No dishes in the kitchen, no shower curtain in the bathroom, no sheets on the bed, nothing. This wasn't his room.
Oh my God. I didn't think about that till just now.
My brain once again went back to the international student theory, thinking he had just arrived today and hadn't gotten a chance to buy anything yet. But in the pit of my stomach, I knew something was wrong. I fiddled around with the door for a few more seconds before announcing that it was fixed, and quickly gathered the door kit and left. Before I had reached the elevator, he came back out without his shoes on to follow me. He tried to get back in to get his shoes and called out, Ella, the door isn't fixed. You need to come back. I went back and opened the door manually and told him if the door was broken, I'd have to send out maintenance to fix it in the morning. I knew he was going to follow me to the elevator again, so I closed the door behind me once he went inside and ran down the stairwell as fast as I could. When I got to the front desk, I checked the computer and saw that the room he was in was supposed to be empty. It wasn't a student room or a hotel room. I locked myself in our back office and called campus security. He came down a few minutes later and went behind the desk. I yelled at him to get on the other side and wait. now that I knew he wasn't a resident. He tore the corner off a slip of paper I had sitting on the desk and drew a flower on it, then put it back on top of my papers. When security arrived, he ran back up to the empty room and tried convincing them he lived there so he wouldn't have to leave. He kept showing them his key card, which had decided to work on the door again somehow. They escorted him back downstairs and came to ask me if he really did live there. Obviously, he fucking didn't. That's why I called you guys crying and terrified. He kept interjecting to argue he did live there, but couldn't even recall his room number when asked. So they told him he would have to leave if he couldn't prove he lived there. At one point, he tried to tell them he was my friend, at which point I poked my head out of the office to say that I literally had never seen him before that night. He left. We didn't call the police because he didn't actually do anything, but it was still fucking unsettling.
I'm hanging out with some friends of mine, and my mom invites my grandma over to my house, okay? So my grandma and my mom are having like this little get-together thing. My friends and me are separated, doing our own thing, watching TV. And about like, I'd say 30 minutes after my grandma getting there, we decide to go and hang out with everyone on the deck. We go outside where the grill is, my mom's grilling, and we're all just hanging out, right? And I'm talking to my grandma, because I haven't talked to her in a long time. Now, usually, I hang out with my friends, and they smoke weed and shit like that. I don't like to smoke anymore. I used to smoke a lot when I was younger, but I was pretty much not smoking weed at this time, okay? Sometimes here and there, if someone offered it to me, I'd take a hit, but I wouldn't usually do it. I just get a lot of anxiety. But everyone ends up going inside for a little bit. My friends were getting hot. They went inside. My mom had to go and grab something out of the kitchen. And I'm just sitting there alone with my grandma. And she's like, hey, do you want to smoke? And she smokes cigarettes. I was like, no, I'm good, grandma. And she's like, I'm sorry for assuming you smoked. I just figured since you're getting older, you were into that stuff like most teens. And I was like, no, I'm not. And she's like, okay, well, let me know. And I was like, huh? Like, I was confused. Like, I'm like, is my grandma trying to get me to smoke a cigarette? Like, what? But I kind of ignored it. And I watched her pull out the cigarette. At least I thought it was a cigarette. And I realized it was a self-rolled one. Like, she rolled it. And the minute she starts smoking it, I can smell something. I'm like, that doesn't smell like a cigarette. Grandma, are you smoking pot? And she's like, what? And I was like, is that pot? And she's like, yeah, it's a spliff. I'm like, Grandma, what the fuck? When did you start smoking weed? She's like, I've been doing it ever since you were a baby. I'm like, oh, okay. She's like, yeah, I didn't offer you a cigarette. You thought I was offering you a cigarette? I was like, yeah. I was like, okay, well, in that case, yeah, I'll have some. And she's like, oh, I knew it. And she hands me it. And I can't believe my fucking eyes because, like, you gotta understand, like, when I was younger and I used to smoke weed, my mom used to go to my grandma and rant about how, like, I was smoking and she caught me doing it and how bad of a kid I was being. And my grandma would have these talks with me about how it's evil and how you shouldn't do that. And then I find out that my fucking grandma is the reincarnation of Snoop Dogg himself. So I'm just like, okay, I'm really smoking a J with my grandma right now. Like, what the fuck? So I asked my grandma, I'm like, hey, grandma, remember a couple of years ago when I used to get caught smoking weed and you would pull me aside and have these long talks with me about how bad it was and, like, how you should never do that stuff and that it'll kill me? And she's like, oh, please, that's all just propaganda. I'm like, yeah, grandma, you used to, like, offer me a J. Like, come on, what kind of grandma are you? Obviously, I was fucking with her. And she was like, shut up. But I still couldn't believe my eyes. I was like, I'm really smoking with my grandma right now. And I usually don't smoke. Back then, I didn't smoke. But, like, come on. My fucking grandma was asking me to smoke with her. Like, I couldn't say no to that. Like, that's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to smoke with my fucking grandma. So anyway, it gets better, okay? So after my grandma hands me this joint, and I'm smoking with her, we're talking, and we get on the topic of YouTube and what I've been doing lately. And she's like, yeah, I've watched a bunch of your videos lately. Your stories are funny as hell. And I was like, there's no fucking way I'm actually, like, not dreaming right now. Like, my own grandma just passed me a fucking J, and now she's saying that she watches my YouTube videos. I didn't know whether to feel, like, awkward that my grandma saw my channel and shit like that, or, like, honored. I still don't fucking know. I don't know. I just think that's so crazy. I can't even lie. I actually thought my grandma didn't know how to use the internet. Like, I didn't fucking know that. So anyway, after we're smoking, talking about YouTube, shit like that, my mom finally comes back out, and a couple of my friends did too. And my mom sees me and my grandma smoking, and she's like, what the fuck? She's like, what are you guys doing? And I'm like, look, I don't know. Grandma offered it to me. I'm not gonna pass up on this. My mom just started laughing, because, like, I can't really do anything. She's not gonna get mad at me. Like, I'm an adult now, shit like that. So we're just smoking, talking. My friends start joining in. It was all in all just a great time, okay? My mom didn't smoke, for anyone asking. My mom is a very, very, like, straight edge person. She doesn't like to smoke weed because she says that it makes her too lazy. And I can believe that. I could definitely do that to some people. But yeah, all in all, just a fucking crazy night, crazy story. And, like, seriously, just fucking crazy, man. I don't even know what to say. But yeah, that's pretty much where the story ends. We always kind of went about our night after that. I went out with some friends of mine. Yeah, that's pretty much the end of the story, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed this funny little story. Please leave a like on the video if you guys enjoyed it. Leave your stories in the comments down below. Subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you guys all later.
So this one time, I go to get my hair done by this new girl that I've never gone to before. I make my appointment for 6 o'clock, right? I pull up to her salon at exactly 6 o'clock. I'm on time. I walk up to the receptionist desk. I'm like, hi, my name is Ash. I'm here for my appointment with, we'll call her Jackie. The receptionist points to Jackie. Jackie's in the middle of finishing some girl's wig. So she goes, if you got something to do, I mean... Mind you, no hi, hello, no, I'm sorry, I'm running late, I'm in the middle of something, nothing. Just, if you got something to do, Jackie, why would I have anything to do? It's 6 o'clock. My appointment is 6 o'clock. And she continues on to be like, I got her head to do, and I still got her head to do. So I'm like, okay. So I'm like, how much time do you need? What time should I come back? She's like, I need like 2. Jackie, 2 what? 2 seconds? 2 minutes? 2 slaps to the fucking head? The fuck do you mean 2? Speak in full fucking sentences, bitch. I desperately need my hair done. Like, I was going on a date the next day. Like, my hair looked crazy. I had no choice. Otherwise, I would not have returned for Jackie to touch my head with that terrible service. And I'm also thinking to myself, like, you know you have 2 more people. You need 2 more hours to get it done before you can even start me. Why didn't your receptionist call me? Why didn't you send me a courtesy text, a courtesy phone call, DM me on IG, send pigeon mail, something? Like, why do I need to come? I got up out of my bed after a long day of work to come to your salon for you to tell me I need another 2 hours. I could have been home. But I waited the 2 hours. I come back at exactly 8 o'clock on the dot, expecting Jackie to be ready for me. Guess what? Do you think Jackie was ready? No, she wasn't. I sat in the salon for another 35 to 40 minutes before she started me. And you want to know the worst part about all of this? The worst part about all of this, I didn't even really like my hair. I didn't even like my hair. My edges were white. The little part that she wraps around and did a half up, half down, the little part she wrapped around the pony, by the time I got home, white. And before y'all come, oh, it's just the freeze spray, add a little water. I don't want to add a little water. The other girls that I go to, I ain't got to add water. They got me. Girl, what? All of this is to say, y'all are unprofessional. Figure it out. Take some classes on how to give better customer service. Speak to your customers with some freaking respect. Send me a courtesy text if you're running late. Because if I would have been that late, I would have had a $5,000 fee. Okay? Moral of the story, don't go to Jackie.
Now check it out. We were in a place that I can't really say where, but it was frigid cold water, and we had to test our mask out. Now we got in the bay to test our mask out, okay? And it's very, very important that you don't have a leak in your mask. And there's always some type of leak, especially when you have a big monkey face like this. But we were putting our face down in the water like this and standing about waist deep like this, because you know seals don't want to get wet if unnecessarily. So we were bent over like this, and we had our mask like this, and we were in the water like this. It is cold, murky, dark water. It's snowing outside. We're miserable. Grown men putting on diapers with beards on is never a good scene, okay? Now, we're testing our mask out like this, and I notice, okay, because I'm always observant, right? Okay? But some guys aren't. And there's one guy that we have, his name is something something. And he's over there, and he's in the deep, and he's like this waist deep water, and he's looking in the water like this with his mask. And I look across the bay, and I see this white albino male seal, like a real seal, like the animal type. And he's over there, and he stands up like this, and he beats his chest, or like flaps his things, I don't know, but it was scary. And he was big, and he was real big because the distance he was at was really far away, several hundred yards. But he stood out because all the other ones were black, and he was this albino male white seal. He stands up. He obviously is very pissed off that we're in the water in his domain. I'm waist deep. I see this. The other seals see this, and we instantly know what's going to happen. The big male albino seal jumps in the water headfirst, dives away across the bay. He's headed directly at us like a straight-on torpedo, okay? I bolt. Hey, leave no man behind. Yeah, right. That's true in combat, but not when you're facing a albino seal coming at you underwater. So we bounce, right? Well, we all bounce a little too quick. We don't tell somebody. That guy is in the deep water, way in the deep, and he's still frolicking around, playing with his mask, trying to get a good seal, and he's just not paying attention. Hey, it's on him. We couldn't go back into this combat scene and get him. I'm sorry. We had to leave him. And so what happened was, all of a sudden, that albino seal didn't even come up out of the water, and it hit him so hard, and he flew out of the water, and his mask flew out of the water. He's bleeding all over his face. We never see the white albino seal. But later on, we found out, he comes out, he goes, bro, and he was bleeding on his face. And he was like, he had his dive knife swinging around like he's going to do something with that. You can't do nothing with your knife. No. Anyway, he's bleeding. He said this huge white head came up out of nowhere as he's looking in the water and bit him directly on the face. But his mask stopped the teeth, but it still ripped his mask off. And that's the kind of stuff you got to deal with when you go in the military, okay? Stop worrying about things.